All right. It's 5:30, and welcome to the monthly meeting of Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities. We appreciate y'all taking the time to be here with us tonight. If you just plugged in, I had mentioned here it was time for a new intro slide. We've had plenty of pictures of disasters. We put a little good news on the board here with the upcoming forecast. So hopefully wherever you're at in town, you got a little bit of rain in your future, and that Sunday and Monday don't get too out of hand here. So agenda for tonight, again, starting with some reminders and announcements. We'll move pretty quickly through that. Kick it over to Susan for the resource of the month. We actually had a couple things for you that includes the updated map, partner reports from our various community leaders, and then pretty packed agenda, though nothing is too long here for the education topic, which is part 2 of Beyond the 100 Feet, Cultivating a Healthy Treescape. So if you missed part 1, it's recorded. You can pull it off the website. So we focused last time on, what does it mean to have a healthy treescape? Tonight, we're going to dig into how to make that happen, including some resources for funding and such. And we'll have open forum, give you some final thoughts on this fire season, and send you on your way. So it shouldn't be terribly long of a meeting tonight. All right, on the left-hand side, reminders and announcements. You've heard me say this stuff enough, so I'm gonna just kind of skim through those first 4. You know to sign up for Code Red, Know Your Zone, Find Your 5, Scout Your Route, and bookmark the Ready Nevada County dashboard. New announcement for tonight. News release on the right. BLM is seeking public input in ways to reduce wildfire risk. And we're asking y'all to participate and throw in your public comments, because this does matter here in Nevada County. What they're trying to do is get comment regarding a major fuels reduction project. This is not Nevada County specific, so we want to make sure that BLM doesn't forget about Nevada County and the lands they have within our territory and within our own Firewise communities. If you look at the map, it's this yellowish, well, I guess orange, sorry, these orange areas that are owned and managed by BLM. So again, if we were to zoom this map out dramatically, you would see that we have not just a very small portion of Nevada County with BLM land, but we also have a very small portion of BLM land in the west, up and down California, Nevada, and to the north. So we want to make sure they don't forget about us, because even though we have a small portion, if you look at where this, where it lies, we have the whole Yuba River Canyon. And as the river fire showed us, a fire starting in a river canyon is not good. So we want to make sure that we make them aware that we definitely want their attention. We definitely want to be part of fuels reduction project. And then you've heard it in various monthly meetings, but we have a whole lot of BLM land that butts up to our residential areas. So you can see the biggest piece down here in Rough and Ready area, but some right inside of city proper, and then some of you out to the west, and Morgan Ranch, that area, etc. So please, there should be a link in the comments section to this meeting of where you can go for public comment, but please give your 2 cents, bring some attention to Nevada County, mention Yuba River Canyon by name, mention here the Bear River Canyon by name. As we saw this summer, unfortunately, fires are really stubborn, and they don't like to stick to jurisdictions and arbitrary lines we settlers have thrown on maps. So we definitely want attention to Bear River and American River Canyons here, as these in bigger events can pose a threat to us here in Nevada County. So again, look for that comment in the chat section. Susan just put it up there. So pull that up now or copy and paste for later, but we're begging for your support on that. And that's the announcements for tonight. So on to our next agenda item. I'm kicking it over to you, Susan.
Thank you. You pick Firewise communities on the left. This is where the map is. And there's your map. There's the legend at the bottom. All the pink stuff are Firewise communities. And thank you to Alan for that. If you go to here and choose 4 FWC admins, this is the page that's been reorganized. Here's the link to the Coalition Facebook group here. This is for leadership member, committee team member people, leadership in Firewise communities, a Facebook group. A link to our education resources page, a whole new section on administering your Firewise community day to day, what to do if you have people in your neighborhood who are not compliant, and things that the Firewise community can do to nudge them along before actually having to report them to the county. Communication, and I want to show you one thing. We are compiling welcome materials that various Firewise communities have used. So everybody else in other Firewise communities can copy them or use them. And we found this great Lorraine Gervais, the singer who we all know, used to be a graphic designer and still does some stuff on the side perhaps, but she created this really great brochure for the Deer Creek Southside Firewise community. It identifies where they are. It has a map with their evacuation zone, a link to the county booklet, a compilation of things from our emergency input page, important web links there, a map of their community here, people in the Firewise community who represent them. They even have a free website, which they don't pay for because it's a Google website. And she created this in InDesign. So if anybody in your team happens to have Adobe InDesign, Lorraine could send you the actual file and then you could adapt it to your own community. Most people don't have that. I'm going to try and replicate at least parts of it in a Word document, which is pretty honky for using for design and layout. But we're going to try to come up with something that that would look like that you could adapt for your own Firewise community. And here's a link to their website. You can check out their website. And the last section in this newly reorganized page for Firewise communities is a section on NFPA reporting, and then guidelines if you keep your own website for Firewise communities. So that's all reorganized, and especially for the admins, and that's my sharing. Thank you, Scott. Back to you.
Good stuff. Thanks for bringing all of that forward to our attention here. We're gonna move on to our partner reports. Chief Matthias, you got some good news for us? Oh,
I'm trying to get to the unmute button. Sorry about that. So yeah, I got a couple of things for you. I'll just, can you hear me okay now? Because I was muted there for a while.
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking at the calendar and I started getting a little worried about it because it looks like its days are numbered. Jeff, come on, its days are numbered. Thank you. Okay. So
I'm just real happy your firefighting skills are better than the jokes.
We're all muted. We can't unmute in time to laugh.
Nice. Okay. So as far as the partner report, it was timely that you were talking about BLM. BLM has actually been engaged with us. We had some pretty good success burning some piles up off of Tyler Foot Road on some of their property that were created. We finished off about 15 acres of that, and the burn went very, very well. It went so well that we couldn't burn as many piles as we wanted to because we were worried about a little bit about the creep at nighttime when we left there. We didn't get any spots thrown off of it, but I'm telling you, we lit a lot of those piles, which were the size of a VW, with just a lighter. Normally we need like drip torches and fusees, but even up in the North San Juan area and some of the forested and shaded areas, we were having good success with burning those piles. So Yeah, that's kind of a problem. That there's good and bad with that. The good is that we were successful, but I will tell you that the BLM has actually made a good effort, and now that they know that we have some people to support them, I think that they're going to be a little more aggressive in allowing us to help them out and burn some of those piles, because you know what happens in the summertime is there's no BLM fire engines around. It's just our fire engines and our local government partners that go put out fires on their property. So I have a vested interest to make sure that fuels reduction programs on their property is very successful. So we're working on that. We'll work on as much as they'll let us. And as long as I got personnel and opportunity to do it and the weather holds out, we're going to try to do it. So that was a big success, I think, up there in the North San Juan area. Hundreds of piles burned. I don't have a total number, but a lot. Our staffing is a little bit fluid right now. We're going to keep at least one engine in every station starting on December. Right now, we're fully staffed still. So we have everything but the air base. Our air tankers and our air attack are down at McClellan getting their annual service. But other than that, we have all of our dozers, all of our crews, and all of our engines staffed. All 22 of them are staffed right now, and we're going to go with that until Monday. And then on Monday, we're going to go down to one engine per station, which reduces us quite a bit. But all the other entities will stay intact. The engines and the dozers and the crews every station will have something in it. And that will go until January 3rd. Also on December 13th, not that it matters for a lot of people, but the actual official declared fire season will be over on December 13th. It doesn't really make a bit of difference because we're already in open burning. But if you were a timber operator and you're working out in the woods, you wouldn't have to haul your fire trailer out with you anymore after Monday. So that's good news. And so we also, tomorrow, we're planning on burning up at the airport to do a vegetation management program burn right along the runways to reduce some of those fuels and protect the airport. But with that last storm and then maybe a little bit more coming up, the weather is not right, and we're just going to create too much smoke. So we're going to wait till the weather turns in our favor. If we're going to close down the airport for a day, we want to make sure that we have a good, successful burn, and the conditions are not right for that right now. So we postponed our burn that was supposed to happen tomorrow. So that's pretty much it. And did you want me to go into 2021, 2022 predictions?
Yeah, what do you got?
I got it. I was hoping to share my screen, but it doesn't say. It says that I can't, and it's not the end of the world if I can't. But is there something you can click on to allow me to do that?
Jim, you should be able to now. Go ahead.
Oh, look at that. You're right. I can. Okay. Are you seeing anything now?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
we can
we got it, but you might want to remove the presenter view.
Yeah, I'm trying to move. Okay, how about that? Is that off the screen now?
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, so I was able to drag it across. So here's a real quick little slide thing that I put together off of the Predictive Services website. And up here on the right-hand side, you're just going to see a summary of what we'll talk about in about 4 slides. We already had a lot of precipitation in October, but we're still looking for a pretty dry, rainy season. The woody live fuel moisture, which is the trees and stuff like that, they're somewhat flammable in some areas because it's just been so long since we've had significant rain, and we got it all at once. So it hasn't had a chance to suck that up. And then all the herbaceous stuff on the ground is starting to get back into a green up with that rain that we had in October. So what we're looking for from December to March is near or below normal temperatures and the wind that goes along with that. So gusty wind and low humidity is basically what we're going to talk about. And there's just a whole lot of words on here, and you can read through it if you want, but I'll paraphrase basically what's going on here. On the left, you'll see their modeling, and they don't just use one model at the National Weather Service. They use a whole bunch of them. So you'll see all these lines and dots that go down towards La Nina and more than El Nino. So El Nino usually for us means that it's going to be a wetter winter. And La Nina usually means a drier winter. And that's what we've experienced the last couple of years. And that's kind of what they expect to go on through December through March. So a little bit colder than normal, a lot less precipitation. So that's kind of a problem for us. So what does that do to all of the fuels? We had this big long drought of a multi-year drought that we were getting through. We had 5 years or so of drought with 1 year of above average precipitation, and through that it has sucked the moisture right out of the atmosphere, and everything is ready to absorb all the water that it can. So that's what we're seeing is we have a very thirsty atmosphere and fuels, and so they're grabbing up whatever fuels in the or whatever water is available out in the atmosphere. And I don't know if everybody has been noticing it, but I sure have. The last couple of winters, when I would get up in the morning, go out to my truck, there was not very much ice or very much dew. If you'll notice in the last couple of weeks, maybe even the last month, there's actually been dew, not so much frost yet because it really hasn't been that cold, but there's been dew all over your vehicle early in the morning. And that's something we haven't experienced the last couple of years. So for me, that's trending in a pretty positive thing. But what's happening is that all of those fuels that are out there, they're going to need more than just the dew that's coming off in order to overcome the multi-year drought. So if you look up at the Sierras, they have a little bit more snow. If you up over 8,000 feet, it kind of depends upon which aspect. A lot of it's melted, but that's pretty much what we're seeing. So the final of all that, what that boils down to, that picture on the left-hand side, if you're not with your nose against the screen, it's kind of hard to see. So the top pictures of the United States are showing the temperatures in the averages and where they expect them to be. And if it's a red pinkish color on the ones across the top in the different months, that means that it's going to be a little bit warmer temperature. If it's a little blue area, that's colder than what we normally have historically. And on the bottom, it's precipitation. I'm sorry, if it's white, it's right around average. So you'll see December, all the months across the board, we're expecting it to be a little colder than normal. So if you have it stacked up on your wood or your heat or your blankets, plan on doing that through at least March is what Predictive Services is seeing. And then the lower pictures of the United States as it goes across in the month is talking about the precipitation that we can expect. And green is more precipitation, and the tan or yellow color is less precipitation. So it looks, and the white is average. So we're either going to be drier or average, and that really doesn't help us overcome the drought. So we were really optimistic there at the end of October when we just got tons of rain, and it really looked pretty positive for us. But right now we're in trouble because it looks like we're going into a La Nina, and even though we are getting a little bit more dew and it's a little bit colder, that certainly helps because we didn't experience that in the last couple of years. We still aren't going to get the precipitation that we need to fill up our reservoirs and fill up the trunks of the trees, and the root balls just get muddy as heck. That's what we'd like to see, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So basically they're saying that fuel flammability is going to be up this summer as well. So I wish I had better news than that, but that's pretty much what I have. So if you have any other questions, just thank you very much for my job. I appreciate having it. And is there any answers I can give you?
I think we got to press on, but with any luck, there'll be a little community forum later. We can get some of those questions out. So thank you. Appreciate you sharing that outlook. All right. Up next, if we get you to stop sharing your screen as well. Up next, Patrick Mason, I believe you're on the call. What do you have from Consolidated?
Yeah, good evening. Been a couple months since I've been on. we have been working pretty hard with our grant that we did receive for bringing green waste yard bins out to the communities. We did receive that grant. It's kind of a entry level, just to kind of see how much interest there was in this program. So it's a $15,000 grant, and we can get 15 of the 40-yard waste bins from Waste Management out into the communities. Currently working on the pre-inspection process right now. Heading out to the Lost Lake area. Was up on Lava Dome today, top of Banner. I'll be out in the Round Mountain Ranch area, Lake Vera Purdon, coming up at the end of the week. And the goal with this program, of course, number one is clearing along private roads for our evacuation routes. Waste Management will drop the bins for 1 week. So we're currently working on getting the pre-inspections done, and then we will work on the actual work. And then once the bin is dropped, it's all about getting it loaded at that point. The project, we're hoping to get this thing wrapped up by the end of March, beginning of April. So it does give us a few months to get this work completed. The other thing we got going on from the OES Defensible Space Inspector side, we're currently working on our year-end reviews, getting all the stats together, but we're looking at taking a look at the hazardous vegetation ordinance and revising that this year and making some updates. And included with that, we're talking about vacant land and how can we pull that into the ordinance and deal with all the vacant land that we do have out here in Nevada County. I know just the fire district alone, we've got over 2,600 parcels that are vacant, and a lot of those parcel owners are don't live in the county. So trying to figure out a way we can deal with that. That's pretty much what we got going on right now. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Good deal. We appreciate you sharing and sticking around on the call here. Up next, Paul Cummings from OES. What do you have that the group hasn't shared yet? Oh, hey, fancy new office?
It's my boss's office. He's letting me hang out here. So thanks to Steve Money. I will have a quick update. I think some of you have already heard this already, but OES is continually submitting for grants. We're executing and moving on grants. I don't want to steal Jamie Jones' thunder, but we hope to see some action with the South County Fuel Break and that AFN Defensible Space Grant here in the next couple of months. So just know that we're constantly trying to work to find those dollars to continue to mitigate that threat. I think that Patrick Mason already mentioned that we're hiring on more folks. We've just brought on a couple of new temp DSIs to do work for these grants. So we should actually be bringing in 2 new temps, which is really great. I did want to mention that many of you on this call are volunteers, Defensible Space Advisory Visit, DSAV inspectors or volunteers that do that work. If over the next couple of months, if you're interested in some temp work, that skill set may align with what we're already doing in OES with our temp DSI. So continue to check in on our county website and hear from Deputy Fire Marshal Patrick Mason and I, and we'll tell you when those positions are open, and we would encourage you to apply for those because we're always looking for more temp DSI workers. I think he might have already mentioned, or Chief Mathias already mentioned, this is just a really great time of year to be doing defensible space work. We're actually going to start a campaign here, in OES with the public to really encourage the public to do that work right now while everything's, raining and damp, and we don't have the fire threat that we have in the summer. We are going out to hire a county coordinator. So this is really great news. Nevada County was awarded a grant from the State Fire Safe Council for 18 months to have a county coordinator really bring people together around these wildfire topics. And so we're hopefully in the next couple of weeks going to be flying that position through the county HR. And so again, if you know somebody who's a really great coordinator, public speaker, good at making connections and project managing, encourage them to apply. That person's really going to be focused on helping us rewrite our community wildfire protection plans, going out into the community, meeting the different stakeholders, much like this group, identifying the things that need to happen, and then trying to build, consensus and momentum around those projects. So really excited to see that person get to work here in the next couple months. Last thing I've got is Lieutenant Sean Scales, who's on the call, is our new Emergency Operations Center coordinator. So Lieutenant Bob Jacobs was recently promoted to captain, so congrats to him. He's now moved up and out of OES, and Lieutenant Sean Scales will be with us for the next 2 years. So please welcome Lieutenant Scales, and you'll be seeing him on these calls moving forward. That's all I've got, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Paul, will the new coordinator be based in the OES office with you other folks?
Yes, yeah, his office is just down one office from mine. So yep, he's part of the OES team. He'll be running the EOC. Everything that Lieutenant Jacobs did, he'll be doing. So.
What I meant was this new community coordinator position.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the county coordinator. Yes, they're going to work for me and OES. So they'll be part of our team. They'll be integrated with us, which is what we want, right? So they'll be working with groups like this to bring those objectives forward.
Well, thanks, Paul, and thanks to Lieutenant, now Captain Jacobs, for his service with this group. Looking forward to working with LT Scales. Up next, Jamie, did you have some stuff for us?
I do. I have a few things. I know I've got quite a bit of time on the agenda, but a couple of updates. Jamie Jones, Executive Director of Fire Safe Council.
You're muted. You're muted, Jamie.
I'm muted and unmuted. How's that? Can you hear me now? So I see some chat going on that about the address sign program. I want to get everybody an update on that. If you're concerned that we haven't received your address sign, you didn't receive a response in the automated response, please reach out to the office. Those signs have not been made yet. We're currently awaiting the product to make those signs, and once we get that, we'll send everybody emails letting them know that they're ready. But please reach out if you feel like it's gone into a black hole to the main business office. I'll put that in the chat here momentarily. I want to really congratulate this group. We are now at 69 Firewise communities. We've added 18 Firewise communities this year, and we're nearly $10 million in Firewise community investment again. So thank you everybody for all your hard work, participation and engagement on being present community members and being Firewise USA participants. So we could continue to be second in the state and second in the nation, and we can't do that without all of your participation. A few other things, we are currently right now the Forest Health Grant that we're operating on. Many of you may have seen the posting, but they burnt 29 acres on that and prescribed fire today. And so there are over 200 acres of prescribed fire in that project now. Our fuels crew that we've hired to work on that all completed their pack test today. We had everybody pass their pack test, which means that they're now red carded and going to be certified to help participate and be a resource to help assist burn on projects with BLM and Forest Service and other agencies. So we're really excited to be able to bring that resource to the community. And then the next, our Truckee office is going to be one of our focuses, is really adding some more presence of the Fire Safe Council and having some accessibility for the folks on the east side. So our Truckee Basin office will be opening up in the coming months. I have one other quick thing. Jamie Irvin actually has an announcement regarding the Prescribed Burn Association that we're partnering on. And he's hopefully going to unmute and give that announcement. And then I'll refer to everything else later.
Yeah, thanks other Jamie. This is Jamie Irvin, and I have bad internet, so sorry if I fuzz out here, but just wanted to make sure this group knew I help organize the Yuba Bear Burn Cooperative, which is the local prescribed burn association for landowners in our area. And this Thursday night, we've got a virtual meeting at this same time, pretty much. It's 6 to 7 with Lenya Quinn Davidson from University of California Cooperative Extension is going to do a presentation on landowner liability related to prescribed fire, which is something that I get a lot of questions about. And so just wanted to make sure this group knew anyone who's kind of thinking through potentially somewhere in the future using prescribed fire as a tool. Liability is a really important consideration, and Lenya is an expert on it. So just wanted to throw that out to this group. I didn't have time to send an email through Scott, but that's this Thursday virtually from 6 to 7. And I'll put a link to the meeting in the chat.
All right, well, thank you, Jamie and other Jamie, and everyone who contributed tonight. We are on to our education topic. Again, if you tuned in late, topic is Beyond the 100 Feet, Cultivating a Healthy Treescape Part 2. If you missed Part 1, it is recorded and on our website. Starting off with a video here that essentially summarizes about an hour and 15 minutes worth of our last meeting and does so in 56 seconds, just talking about what does a healthy treescape look like and why do we want it in the first place.
Hey everybody. As fires continue to ravage our forests here in California, I just wanted to show you something here at the Caldor Fire. We're along Mormon Emigrant Trail, where a lot of work has happened over the last several years to treat this area. You've heard a lot of people calling for forest management, and this is what that looks like. Look at this area here. It has been thinned out mechanically. Trees have been cut down, pulled from the area. The forest floor has been cleaned up, and you can see the fire came up out of the canyon and it just burned right along the floor, just burned in the pine needles that are left behind. But it left the trees intact. The fire had no fuel to get up into the canopies and jump from tree to tree. And so with that management, that stopped the fire as it came up out of the canyon, leaving it just to smolder here in the vegetation that's left on the ground. So that is what people want to see when they're calling for forest management, as we've had some major incidents here in California.
All right, so that's setting the stage for our talk tonight. If you get overwhelmed by the scope and scale of that project or what that looked like in the video, one of our bigger property owners and our own steering committee member, tech support guy, database manager, all around good guy here with the coalition, Jeff Peach, is going to share his story of clearing his massive swath of property up there on the backside of Banner Mountain. So Jeff, floor is yours.
Okay, we live up on Banner, the backside of Banner, about 3,200 feet. And I'm going to show you a little video that I put together that kind of was the cause of a big part of our education, I guess. I mean, basically we drove through, one of our neighbors has a huge parcel and he's logged it 2 or 3 times and he's done a shaded fuel break, and we drove through it for 30 years. We still drive through it to get to our house. And it's just been a real educational experience for me to watch how this forest developed and being able to not, occasionally go by it, but see it every day. And it's really impacted my whole approach to, what a healthy forest is.
My wife and I moved to Nevada City around 1985. This picture shows us standing with our young son in front of a ponderosa pine that's now about 50 feet tall. We loved our trees, we loved the forest to death. Why don't people manage their forest properly? Life gets in the way, soccer Saturdays, costs money. I like the privacy. I'm not physically able. I need the tools. It hurts the trees. It's Mother Nature's job. Well, Mother Nature is doing her job. If we don't thin our forests, she will. Along came the shaded fuel break. At first, we weren't exactly sure what this shaded fuel break thing meant. We looked up the definition. A shaded fuel break is a forest management strategy used for mitigating the threat of wildfire in areas where natural fire regimes have been suppressed, leading to a dangerous buildup of combustible vegetation. It basically slows a fire down and gives the firefighters a chance. In the center part of this picture, you can actually see some of the forest floor between the trees. This area is the shaded fuel break. If you look to the left, you can see the more dense green where the forest had not been thinned. This was about 1.7 miles to the county road from our house that we drove every day. We were able to watch the fuel break develop. It was a dense forest that we felt was beautiful. Along came the creation of the shaded fuel break. That brought on logging activity, intense fuels mitigation, dusty machinery, stumps all over the place. It was sometime in the last decade that work began. The forest was picked clean, brush and branches were chipped or burned, tall trees were trimmed up high, removing ladder fuels. It was park-like. Time passed. We watched. Then our approach to being stewards of the forest started to evolve. The top picture shows suppressed trees in an overcrowded forest. The bottom picture shows a well-thinned, healthy forest. Here is a cross-cut picture of 2 trees cut from our property. Each ring represents a year of growth. The one on the right, 5 years old, came from an area that has been thinned and shows healthy growth rings. The one on the left is clearly suppressed. It is about 20 years old. After the shaded fuel break was created, we noticed that the young trees were healthy and vibrant, with dark green needles, straight tops, good spacing, and less competition. The trees are like straws in the ground, competing for the same water and nutrients. The ladder fuels were removed. It became a healthy forest. In our younger years, we tried to save every tree. We felt bad about cutting a living tree. It was a hard thing to do. We've observed and learned. You thin your carrots, thin the forest. A healthy forest has less competition for nutrients and water. Trees become stronger. Healthy trees are more resilient against beetle infestation and fire. Healthy trees look better. You get exercise. You enjoy your forest with less bushwhacking. The healthy forests can help deter catastrophic forest fires. Thin the forest, don't be dense. This led us to want to improve our forest. We pursued an EQIP grant, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, at NRCS. We met with a forester, cruised the property, and discussed the goals. The forester created the proposal, which was to thin trees, including underbrush, limb trees up, remove ladder fuels, and deal with the debris, either chip, burn, or lop and scatter. After we completed all that, the forester then inspected when it was done. The check was then in the mail. It usually covered about half of our cost without paying myself. We decided to thin a 500-foot circle around our house and broke it into 3 zones. After each zone was completed, we received payment. Here's a photo before we thinned in 2018 and one in May of 2021, creating our own shaded fuel break. Remember, a healthy forest is a happy forest. Healthy forests can help deter catastrophic forest fires. Thin the forest, don't be dense.
Pretty fantastic, Jeff. We appreciate the time it must have taken to put all that together and compile that project. And, you know, I'm saying this not as the, whatever my title is here at the coalition, but as a member of the selection committee for Wild and Scenic Film Fest. You know, David Attenborough's got nothing on you, man. I hope to see you in the fest someday. Piggybacking on Jeff's video, you got to see his personal experience. If you saw the sign, the picture he took from that fuel break project, bottom right said NRCS. With us tonight from NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, I don't know, a division or unit of the USDA. I'll let her explain it, but we've got Pam Hertzler with us tonight. Pam, can you give us a little insight into, you know, what is the process? I assume we don't just roll into your office and hand out $100 bills. What is the process like? Pam, if you're with us, I think you're still muted. I know I saw you earlier.
Okay, now, can you hear me now? Just
Perfect.
that I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yay. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, and
Yeah. So
the conversation from earlier, yes, I am still with AT&T. Anyway, yes, my name is Pamela Hertzler, and I am with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. We are an agency with the United States Department of Agriculture, which means we are federal. What NRCS has done through the years, I'm going to see if I can't share my screen. Okay, can you see this? Can you see my?
Yep,
Yes.
You're good.
Okay, great.
Just a quick reminder to you as well as all the other speakers, we are allotting just a few minutes to each, so we do need to move a little quickly through these.
Okay. Well, just real quick about NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. We came out of the Dust Bowl back in 1935 due to all the erosion due to the Dust Bowl and the big migration that came out here. Congress saw that we needed something to help us, and they brought on the Soil Conservation Act of 1935, which we started out as the agency Soil Conservation Service. Now, fast forward to 1994, they reorganized everything and we became Natural Resource Conservation Service to reflect everything that we were doing with soil, water, air, plant, and animal resources. And just some pictures of some areas. And this picture right here, if anybody's worked with Evan Smith, our forester, that's him. And this was after the fire above on San Juan Bridge prior to the Jones fire. We're all out there helping this particular individual out. What we have, as I mentioned before, is federal funding for private land. All our funding is through our agricultural farm bill. So much money comes into that farm bill and so much will go towards irrigation or healthy soils or forestry. And that's what we're here today about, is for forestry. We offer technical and financial cost share. I know we get caught up in the verbiage, but our cost share is not a grant. Grants are not taxable, where these are taxable. If you receive funding from us, you will get a 1099 at the end of the year. But the idea is to be able to give you some money to, after you are completed with your project, and it's through our specifications to help you with what you've done. And like Jeff had mentioned, you paid him about 50%. Sometimes you get a little bit more depending on your eligibility. And yes, you are correct. You do not just walk into our office. I'd love to be able to just go, okay, here's a check for you. There is paperwork you do fill out, and application and eligibility process. And it takes a bit, you know, it's federal government. And so we do have paperwork. Our Healthy Forest Initiative, the majority of our Environmental Quality Incentive Program, that is our program, and that encompasses everything, whether it be agriculture or forestry or dairy. But up here, of course, the majority of my applications that come into my office are for our Healthy Forest Initiative. Many forest stands have way too many trees per acre that compete for the light, nutrients, and water. This leaves the forest extremely susceptible to disease and insect damage, increases the risk of catastrophic fire. Some of our activities we help with, and like that gorgeous video that Jeff was showing with his fuel break, we also offer what's called forest stand improvement obstruction removal. That's removing of the dead trees, the down trees. If you've had some trees that were killed due to the bark beetle, we help remove those. Slash disposal, tree shrub establishment. And again, here is a picture, and this might even be your place, Jeff, before thinning and then after thinning. And you see it's more of a park-like setting. Here's some pictures of some pruning going high up, at least 10 feet, help get rid of those ladder fuels so that the fire can just creep along if you do, not if, but when you do get a fire. Fuel break, again, here's showing this nice clearing. It's what it comes down to. It's a park-like setting afterwards. And what also is some tree and shrub establishment we can help you with if you do need to replant. We are helping with some folks now that had some damage due to the river fire. So we are here to help you out. Again, my name is Pamela Hertzler, and I am the district conservationist, the manager of the office. Quite a few of you may have already, I know you've worked with or met our forester, Evan Smith. You can reach out to any one of us, and this is our contact information. And does anybody have questions for me today?
We're going to actually hold questions. We're running late here. Okay. But if you could, would you be able to put your contact info in the chat? I know a lot of people might appreciate that if they can copy and paste that. That'd be great.
Absolutely, I can do that.
Good stuff. All right. All right. So that again gives you an outlook of one potential funding source in our community for individual homeowners. We've also had a number of entire Firewise communities wondering how they might be able to secure some funding. And with us tonight is our own, Greenhorn Firewise community member, Dianne Marshall, who's going to share a little bit about how that community went about their grant application. So to start with, a huge congratulations. Dianne, you and your group put it out there, and the community had interest. You had an amazing project, and it was recently announced by the supervisors that you guys have secured funding. So huge congrats. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and what you went through? Might be muted. Dianne, you with us?
Okay, here we go.
All right.
it's a very interesting process being able to secure funds. And the primary thing to learn is to ask. The fact that we secured a community resiliency grant for a water tank project is somewhat amazing. And it happened because Jan Weaver called Caleb Dardick and said, do we have any chance of getting this grant? And he said, try. And that's the most important lesson for everybody in the world of seeking funding from grant sources. When I was first asked to do this, it was my impression that I was to share information with you all about healthy forest funding. And so that's what the first few slides on this PowerPoint are. And I'm not going to take a lot of time with them because you can read them later. Susan has put them up on the screen, but I will share this slide because it's very important that you know your fire professionals. One of the reasons we were successful in being able to secure this grant was because we worked with Terry McMahon and Jerry Funk on a regular basis from the Nevada County Consolidated Fire District. And the idea of the water tanks came from them, and we just followed up on it to be able to see what could be done. And one thing led to the next. It's not simple, nothing is simple, but it can be done. I'm not going to talk about these slides because we're hard on time. It's very important to be sure you're ready to get a grant. Are you ready to administer it? Are you ready to account for the funds? And do you have the insurance requirements that you're going to be faced with? And have you included money for that in your budget? And do you know who's going to do the paperwork for you? If you've got a handle on that, you're in a good place for starting. And keep in mind, funders want you to be successful. Here's a slide that talks about resources that this funder provides grant applicants. It's also important to be aware that local funding is available. It doesn't all have to be grant funding, and it can come from a well-written fundraising letter. Like in our situation with the water tanks, to send out a letter to everyone in the community and ask them to donate $100 to the water tank means that everybody who gives $100 owns that water tank, or the two of them that we're going to put in. And that it isn't just something that was given to the community or put in the community, it was something they made happen. And I think given the nature of what we're about here, that's a very wonderful thing. Here's a picture of what we're looking at doing. And one of the things that was very exciting about applying for this particular grant was we had to make a connection between fire suppression and COVID-19. And with a little research on the internet and a whole lot of footnotes so that they weren't big and didn't take a lot of space, we were able to indicate several articles that made the connection between the pulmonary issues of fire and smoke and COVID-19, and how the three states, Washington, Oregon, and California, had higher death rates because of the fires. They had higher death rates from COVID because of the fires in their areas. So you never know where you're going to get your connections. Don't be afraid. Jump in. So there's the water tank. And the rest of what I have to say is just how you write a grant. Be sure you do what the funder wants. Be sure you relate to what the funder's priorities are, not yours, theirs. Use their language in what you write. Stay focused and don't wander around. If you have an experienced grant writer you can work with, do it. It's always important to have somebody read your stuff who does not do what you're doing so that they can tell you what they don't understand. Because if they don't understand it, the funder might not understand it. Don't bury important information, and be sure your budget and your budget narrative match what you have said in your proposal. Don't bring things up in the budget that you never mentioned in the proposal itself. Use fresh eyes to read your work before you submit it. Grant writing is very tiring. And plan to be successful. You'll do it. Don't be afraid. Ask your questions. Funders have to give their money away. If they sit on it and don't give it away, they won't have it next year. Go for it. That's it. Questions are welcome at the end. Thank you.
That's fantastic, Diane. We appreciate you sharing that knowledge. If you're open to it, and I know this is a big ask, but if you're open to sharing your contact info to community leaders who might have questions, if you could put that in the chat, and if you don't want to, zero pressure whatsoever. Again, I understand that's a big ask, but you do have an extensive history that you didn't get into in terms of grant writing, but we know you're being humble there for those of us who know how much you have done in that arena throughout your career and lifetime.
And Scott, I'm putting Diane's PowerPoint as a PDF on our website in the next 10 minutes. So it'll be there under the Firewise admins section.
Fantastic. And again, congrats to you and the whole Greenhorn Firewise community for what you're doing out there, making that a safer place and easier for our fire department to get the job done out there. Up next, we are back to Jamie Jones. Question. So up next, we're back to Jamie Jones to talk about a couple other funding sources, including the Access and Functional Needs Defensible Space Clearing. So Jamie, you are up again. What you got for us?
Hello again. I will try to make this brief. Actually, some of what Diane just covered is in my next presentation. So she's taken some of the extra work out for me. Discussing the Access and Functional Needs Program. The County of Nevada is recipients, or will soon to be recipients, of some HMGP funding through FEMA, which is going to cover our Access and Functional Needs Clearing Program, Defensible Space Clearing Program for residents who are elderly, low income, disabled, and can't otherwise complete those efforts on their own, or don't have the financial resources to do so. So this program, there's technically 2 HMGP grants that have total approximately $6 million that the county will approve in December. And it's going to be set to treat nearly 800 homes in Nevada County for some of our most vulnerable community members. So in the first round of funding, we'll see the $2.3 million available. And there's 60 homes that have already been pre-approved and vetted for environmental clearance through FEMA. And that's what will commence, as we move into the contracts being fulfilled. What this program does, it helps them. I know our conversation tonight is outside of our 100 feet, but really this is outside of our personal homes 100 feet, because we're helping other residents who may not otherwise be able to complete these tasks. And as we all know, their ability to have defensible space clearing always impacts, neighboring homes and the community. So we want to help make sure that they can achieve their defensible space within their 100 feet, as well as the clearing along driveways and evacuation routes nearing the home. What they'll get with that is the DSI pre-inspection through Office of Emergency Services DSI program. It'll be an opportunity to educate homeowners on the best practices for mitigating risk, not only to themselves, but to their neighbors. And then they'll be able to achieve Public Resource Code 4291 and additionally the county's hazardous vegetation ordinance. And then again, approving wildfire safety for everyone involved in that community. If you know folks that need to be participating in this program that could use this valuable resource and this funding opportunity, the applications are still being accepted. You can access them through the Fire Safe Council website. The link is here. I'll throw this presentation over to Susan to share as well. Additionally, you can go to the County of Nevada website and you can put an interest request in from their website. I believe 211 is helping folks with applications. I know it's not always an easy process, and we're dealing with people's, personal information and sensitive data. So our office, as well as 211, is happy to help you complete those applications. And then this is more to the timeline. As I said, the County of Nevada's Board of Supervisors will vote on approving this funding in December at their December 14th board meeting. Our participation portion of it will go through the Board of Supervisors on January 11th, which would be the finalizing of our contracts to perform services for the community. And then as long as everything is on schedule, we should be able to commence work as early as February, right in time for our next fire season. So we're really excited to be able to bring this this program back to the community that's been lacking funding. And we're really happy to be partnering with the County of Nevada on this again, and with another successful program. How can you help? The answer to that is talk to others about the program, continue to educate within your Firewise communities to make sure that your neighbors know that this resource is available. You can attend the Nevada County Board of Supervisors meeting to support their funding acceptance, as well as the Fire Safe Council's contract. And then voice your support for these and other projects that Fire Safe Council runs. I think additionally at that Board of Supervisors meeting in January, there'll also be a funding measure on there for Title III, which is what supports our Firewise community program. It's our annual allotment to help support the Firewise USA program, and what made us so competitive in continuing to, put the numbers up and involve community members as we have in the past. So, and then as always, again, letters of support for your guys' contribution, your hard work and determination that we get to use for in-kind match helps with future grants. That it is really a key proponent of getting successful funding opportunities. Do you want me just to roll into my next presentation?
Do it.
Okay. So let me find it. Sorry. I need to
I should ask Bob Long. Did you want to introduce this one?
Yeah.
No, I think it's going just fine. Besides that, I don't have a joke to tell anyway. So, sorry.
Sorry,
you want me to tell one instead?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get it to switch tabs here so that I don't. All righty. Can everybody see the Western Nevada County Forest Health Objectives? Perfect. All right, so the next one is discussing our Forest Health Grant. And this is really just some background on, everyone always asks us, what's the criteria for developing grants? How do we get on board with these types of programs and projects? And so I just wanted to give everybody just a few items. It kind of breaks down to these 6 categories. And so it's, what are the details of the grant? What's the criteria? For us, it was forest health, prescribed fire, and fuel reduction, which really fit the forest health narrative for the CAL FIRE forest health grants. And so where is it in the plans and who's going to collaborate? This project specifically fell within the CWPP, which is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, the local CAL FIRE unit plan, and the local hazard mitigation plan. And so it really checked that box as well. And then when you're looking at CAL FIRE grants, one of the big, grading measures is where is it on the fire severity zone? Let me see, I don't go full screen on this so you guys can see, sorry. Much of this project, as you'll see in the next map, falls in the very high or high fire severity zones. Another area that they look at is, you know, how many people are going to be impacted by this sort of project. For us, we had 10 Firewise communities that fall within the boundaries or immediately adjacent. And then when you pull out on the map and you see, you know, the kind of the bird's eye view, it really does impact much of or all of Nevada City, the town of Washington, and North San Juan. So there's a lot of folks that are going to benefit from this type of a project. And then, does it help disadvantaged community members? Washington and North San Juan are both registered disadvantaged community members or communities. So we're happy to be able to bring large landscape level projects to those communities. And then, are there matching contributions available? And the answer on this is absolutely. You guys continue to support these sorts of projects with your investment in the Firewise communities. And so several of you wrote letters of support in this project. And then of course, our partners at the U.S. Forest Service are investing quite a bit of match in order for the successful completion of the project. One thing that we see in nearly all of our Firewise community risk assessments is something that comes up outside that 100-foot zone. We always identify the adjacent land managers. So many of you have, you know, neighboring ownership that come from BLM, Forest Service, county parcels. And so we always suggest engaging them in community projects, trying to work on fuel reduction projects together, and then, you know, making sure that they're helping make sure that those land managers have the ability to complete fuels reduction and preparedness activities that benefit your Firewise communities. So this is just the bird's eye view of the map here. You can see there's several different areas. I've broken them down in you know, in the next slides by Firewise communities or the areas that impacted with Firewise communities. But it's not just, you know, the ones that are captured inside of the boundaries. You know, we can see several units here, but all of the pink, as Susan was showing us earlier, these are all Firewise communities. As we know, fire doesn't have any boundaries. And so in the event that a fire started in our federal land manager's property, it could quickly, you know, ascend on Nevada City and several of these Firewise communities. So we want to continue to support these landscape level fuel reduction and land management projects to make sure that we have not only healthy forests, but we continue to be a fire resilient community. This area specifically is what's called the bear trap units. And this is this, if you'll see here, everything in this green check or lined boxes are federal land managers here. The orange would be BLM. So in this specific region, they have a lot of Forest Service land and BLM land that, you know, impacts their ability to stay, you know, fire safe or Firewise. And so the main communities here would be Cruzon Grade, Lake City, Grizzly, and Old Mill. And then moving along, this is the Washington units, but it covers multiple sides of Highway 20, but it impacts Lightning Tree, Scotts Flat, Cascade Shores, and U-Bet. Again, you can see all of this green is federal land. Another thing I want to point out here is all of the pink in these ones are the fire severity zone. So while the green is not marked as pink as a high fire severity zone, they actually are. They just don't rate them when they're federal land partners. So this entire area is in that high fire severity zone. Again, we have that Washington unit, the Highway 20 corridor. We really wanted to make sure that we were able to help the town of Washington manage they have a huge impact on tourism during the summer times. And that's a lot, all of us seeing our beautiful rivers and people coming from out of town, enjoying Forest Service land. And so this area specifically gets inundated with, lots of folks during the summer. We want to make sure that we're helping them be able to manage those lands and do forest health activities that, can help alleviate some of that stress and continue to keep them protected. They're a little more isolated than the rest of our community. Right now, we're focused on two portions of this grant, basically. We have a fuels reduction and a prescribed fire element. You'll start seeing hand cut and chip, hand cut and pile and mastication treatments in spring. Primarily right now, our federal partners are taking advantage of the good weather, and we've had multiple opportunities to burn early in this season. So our crews have been working on burn prep, and our federal partners have been working on understory burning and pile burning. And this is actually a photo of a burn that they worked on recently. Oh, it didn't stop switching. I lost my last slide. So my last slide basically was, how does everybody else get involved in these types of projects? How do we come together to develop and create those and later implement them? And really it is, as Dianne said, don't be afraid to work with your stakeholders in your community. Know your fire district. Chief Matthias is always willing to answer questions, as is the Fire Safe Council. We want to help you put these projects together, and it doesn't hurt to ask. So they may not always fit that specific grant, but if we know that we have an opportunity, oh, look at my slide just popped up, everybody. So just use those local resources and don't be afraid to work with the Fire Safe Council. We're happy to assist on grant writing, planning, mapping, and identifying those funding opportunities. And then just as a quick side note, I wanted to make sure that everybody knows we're really happy that we just got our second track chipper, which is up here in this photo, as well as the Firewise community trailer through the Listos California and California Fire Safe Council grant award. This trailer is going to be available here in the next month or so to residents and Firewise communities for community work days. It'll be equipped with tools and whatnot so that we can help facilitate those types of events. I have sure reached my max of time. I'm available for questions later in chat if there are any.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jamie, for all that great information. So that was the last of several presenters tonight and several presenters spread out over these last two meetings. So just to bring this concept together in talking about cultivating a healthy treescape, in the last meeting we learned really big picture, what does it take to cultivate a healthy forest. If nothing else, go back and look at a couple of the short films that USFS put together, the Forest Service put together to share. Again, big idea is that just letting things grow wild is not necessarily the safest thing, and it's not even the best thing for the forest. How do we manage that within our own communities and our own properties? We heard some stories from Jeff Peach of the Coalition Steering Committee of what he did on his property. We heard about funding opportunities. So we heard from Dianne about how to go get some bigger grants for a whole community. We heard from Pamela at NRCS about how to get grants for your specific property. And we put out other resources in previous meetings. And in the chat, I saw an offer. If you haven't yet, please scroll through and take a look. One of our residents here, Doug Fleming, writes grants for OES, Nevada City, and other organizations, is willing to help. So definitely go grab his contact info while you can, and just know that there's resources out there. and spread the word. I'm going to open it to the open forum in a second here, but we recognize that we're preaching to the choir here, but please share these with your community members, because there's a whole lot of people out there who probably want to do good and want to do the right thing, but don't know what that is or how to do that. And hopefully over these last 2 meetings to round out this year, we've given you some actionable items that you can take into the new year with your community. So, my challenge to the whole group is, instead of sitting back and saying, yeah, we've heard this before, again, ask yourself, am I doing it, and am I spreading that message? So with that, just a quick peek at our agenda here. We are to open forum. So if we have any questions from the audience, we got a whole lot of people from the county and various agencies here. So feel free to unmute and ask a question.
I have a question for Patrick Mason.
Anyone?
Is Patrick still on the call?
I am here.
I think I heard you mention that some entity is going to start working on or looking at an ordinance that would apply to vacant parcels in terms of vegetation management. Could you give us a little more information on that, please?
Yeah, so we've definitely identified a need for vacant parcels, being right up against a lot of these residential areas.
Right.
So in OES, we started it earlier this year, but due to the fires, it kind of fell off the table a little bit. But we're bringing it back and trying to develop at least a framework for what we can do with vacant land at this point and get it added into that ordinance, that has veg ordinance. This go around, and hopefully is it specific just to parcels that are abutting residential, but we got to take into consideration agricultural land and all that. So it's a pretty big project in trying to really scope it down to what exactly can we enforce on.
Okay, great. So in other words, county staff itself is looking at this ordinance, developing the ordinance, and it'll start with parcels that are adjacent to residential parcels.
That's an area that we're looking at. Nothing for sure set in stone yet.
Okay.
Those are just ideas we've tossed out.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this is something that people, residents in the coalition meetings have been bringing up since the coalition started. So that's very good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks, Susan. Thanks, Patrick. Who else has a question?
When is the Defensible Space Advisor meeting going to be? I saw a message in the spring.
Amy?
Yeah, so right now we're aiming for late winter, but it looks like it's going to be early spring. Billy Spearing has promoted to our administrative analyst, and she'll be planning that as one of her first efforts. She's currently coordinating with board members on that. So as soon as we have a date, we'll make sure that everybody gets an invite. If you aren't already signed up, please reach out, but we will make sure that we get that distribution list to everybody on the wait list.
Okay.
Thanks for that question, Scott. I'm going to throw one out to either Dianne, I think you're still with us, or Jamie. Great information on the process, but really, what's the first step? So if I'm either a homeowner, maybe a leader within my own community, like what's the next step to get a bigger project rolling? Like what's the first thing I should be doing right now?
I'd be glad to take a crack at that for you. The first step is to check in with other people to see what is your idea, what is the need you're trying to fill, who agrees, what kind of support and endorsement can you get, and what'll it cost? And you better think about what it'll cost over and over and over again, because as these things come together, they kind of blossom into many facets that have to be addressed. It's very rarely is it a one size fits all clean sweep sort of a thing. So do you know your fire professionals? Do you know Wanda Mertens from Farmers Insurance, just what is the project going to cost and who's going to help you? Is it good to use volunteer labor? Is it better to use paid professionals? That kind of stuff.
Got it. So analyzing the whole scope of what you want to get done and who's going to support you and what it's going to take. Right. So I appreciate you sharing that info. Jamie, do you have anything to throw on top of that?
I would echo Diane's sentiment on that. Really just having an idea and not being afraid to brainstorm and work with other partners. Collaboration is key on the success of grants. And so meeting with people, developing that idea, and just seeing where all your partners and community members, kind of plug in to make it the most successful grant application possible.
Thanks. All right, last call for questions before we...
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with the Greater Cement Hill Neighborhood Association, which is outside the city limits of Nevada City. However, the city owns little scraps and pieces of land that abut some of our homeowners in our neighborhood, and they're not being Firewise with these pieces of land. Does anyone have any suggestions how we could shake things up and get them to pay attention to the land they own next to our neighbors?
Joanne, I'm also in the city. What Firewise community are you in?
Greater Cement Hill.
Oh, you're in Nevada City.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in Grass Valley. We're having similar issues getting the fire department to pay attention to us, but yeah, so I'm sorry, I can't help you with Nevada City.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to...
Consolidated, do you want to feel that?
Nope.
Yeah, so I have dealt with that quite a bit down here on the lower side Indian Flat Road area.
Yes.
City owns a lot of property in there.
Yes.
Usually we'll receive a complaint through OES. When we receive that complaint, we're going to go out, we're going to take photos with our defensible space inspectors. And at that point, it usually comes to me and I reach out to whether it be Sam Goodspeed at the Nevada City Fire Department or Darren Hutchins over at the Grass Valley City Fire Department. And I'll pass on our findings along with our photos, letting them know that they're not within the ordinance for the county has veg. And usually they're pretty responsive, and just being able to sit down and talk with them and get them out there to see what's the actual problem is.
Terrific. Thank you so much for that information.
You're welcome.
I can potentially add to that. I know that there's a lot of parcels inside the city limits and even county that are all, fall into that kind of category that they need land management, budget and resources becomes a main issue for even our city managers and our county. One of the things that Fire Safe Council's been trying to coordinate, we've been hosting AmeriCorps crews and Conservation Corps crews annually. And so if there are any parcels that fall within that criteria and you think that, Fire Safe Council can help facilitate a project day with some of those crews or resources, we'd be happy to work with the city or the county to assign some fuel reduction through the Conservation Corps or AmeriCorps crews when they're available.
Because Nevada City.
Great, Jamie. Will you, sorry, Jamie, will you just throw maybe Pat's contact info in the chat as a follow-up to that? I'm sorry, Diane, I cut you off.
That's I just wanted to say I've been very intrigued by the street signs in Nevada City, since so many of them are made of wood. And if the town were on fire, the fire companies wouldn't know what street to look for because the street signs would have burned up. Go up to American Hill Road, you'll find, if you make your way up there, there's just a whole lot of street signs that are made of wood. Anyway, it just amazes me. Why aren't they made of Fire Safe Council's green and white signs.
Anyone want to take that?
I can comment.
I'll just,
yeah, if you want. This is Pete Williams, and I'm helping out the Nevada City Fire Safety Committee, and that's an issue that the committee has considered. And what you've got is in the city limits, those are historic signs. And so there's some pushback about changing them out to metal signs that would be certainly more visible and better for firefighters. And that is not resolved as far as I know, but it is an issue that's been discussed by this committee with the city. That's as much as I can tell you right now.
Pete, has anybody suggested that it doesn't have to be one or the other? It can be both, just like people putting a reflective green sign on their house. They don't have to take down their funky homemade wood sign. Couldn't both of them be up there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been discussed. I just don't know. I can't tell you exactly where that discussion is right now, but that is one of the alternatives certainly that has been discussed, is keeping both. But I think some people might resist just the idea of having some new shiny green and white sign that doesn't look quite as historic as the old wooden ones. But again, that's as much as I know right now.
Oh. Can I touch on the fire engines not getting to your house thing real quick? So I certainly don't want to discourage anybody from getting newer, more visible signs to mark their roadways. But as far as the fire departments and CAL FIRE, we all have pretty good mapping electronics in our vehicles. A lot of us are pretty local. Yes, if we get somebody from covering from the Bay Area or Southern California or Fresno or wherever, they're going to have a little trouble getting around. But all of our CAL FIRE engines have, linked devices, AVLs in them that can work off a radio, satellite, and cell phone network. So they should be able to get around. And then after we get our sea legs under us onto a fire in about 24 hours, every day we're giving out paper maps to all the people that respond to the incident. So not that I don't think it's a good idea to replace your signs, but fear not, the fire engines will make it to your house.
Good to hear.
Thanks, Jim. And I'll echo on the evacuation side. Every morning at the campfire, 300 mutual aid law enforcement came, and every evening in 12-hour shifts, 200 law enforcement came for the overnight. Some as far away from literally San Diego to Central Oregon. And we were able to put digital mapping on their phones. So even, mailboxes, metal signs, everything had pretty much melted to the ground at that point. Zero cell phone coverage because the towers were nuked. And we were able to get maps on 300 law enforcement officers' phones every single morning to aid in evacuation and just the general patrol of the area. So know that there's lots of contingency plans in place. But again, I'll also say, don't let that story diminish the need for better marking and Dan's original point. All right, and with that, I want to wrap it up in these last couple minutes just with some thoughts on this fire season. Really just a thank you to everyone who's with us. And I see these same faces all the time in these meetings, the same names popping up. Hopefully someday again, I will see your pretty faces again when we're out when I'm getting my morning coffee or at the grocery store and we're not hiding behind masks. But it is really great to see all of you, and really amazing what all of you are doing. If I've made one thing clear through my tenure here and with other organizations around town, you might know me from, it's that I've never really had an original idea, and I'm just really good at surrounding myself with people smarter than me with better ideas than I have. And my final thank you here is going to be no exception, as I'm stealing a story from a book called Paradise Built in Hell, The Extraordinary Communities That Arise in Disaster. And it's just a book that tells the story of a number of disasters and how the communities responded. One of those disasters was a tornado that occurred in 2011 in Joplin, Missouri. And it's kind of a tale of two cities, because the tornado ripped through one area and with catastrophic results in terms of loss of life and property, with 158 people being taken away by that storm and losing their lives. Down the road was another town, same tornado and tornado complex, multi-vortex, meaning many different tornadoes. And in that town had, I don't quote me, but I believe it was literally 0 loss of life. And the reason for that came from, is credited by some people, including the author of this book, Rebecca Solnit, to one individual in that community. And this was just an organizer in the community, someone who was well respected, someone who politically they said was accepted on both sides, and was out early in front of the event, getting the word out to the community. This is relevant because in the event of disasters, there is a large distrust of authority. So, there's a reason why we bring, Deputy Fire Marshal Mason on here, and Paul Cummings with OES, and all of the main players in this town. But there's also a reason why we bring a number of community members to speak on here, and why you guys are all so important in a disaster. And we've seen this throughout the pandemic, that there are many people who will immediately discredit and not listen to the advice given by officials. And this, to some degree, was the case in this Missouri tornado complex. But again, one individual, respected by his community, was out in front of it, ringing the bell and warning the alert. And for that, he saved the lives of hundreds of individuals. That's relevant as we wrap up 2021, because many of you, are that person, and you might not know it yet. But your neighbors look to you, your friends look to you. They might not ask you directly for advice, but when you speak, they listen. When you post something on Facebook, they act on it. Again, I want to thank all of you for being that person, and for being that leader in your community, and for getting the word out and making this place safer for everyone in the event of a fire. Because as one of our speakers earlier mentioned, it's not a matter of if, it's really a matter of when. So again, thank you all for what you do. This is our last meeting for the year. We will be taking January off, but back at it Tuesday, February 1st, very tentative topic of homeowners insurance. We might also talk about early warning systems instead, and we also have some legislative changes coming, so no shortage of information, but we will see you in February on Tuesday. So thanks everyone for your time tonight. Some of us will be sticking around to chat and answer questions if you have them. And yes, I will put the name of that book in the chat. So thanks everyone. Have a great night.